Our next speaker is Elizabeth Nsimadala. She's the chair of she's the president of the Eastern African Farmers Federation that has many members across East Africa. So she has a very powerful position, and she's also an entrepreneur. So we're very happy to hear from her from farmers' perspective, the role that farmers have in terms of ensuring safe food in the value system. So we welcome Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Mike, for the introduction. And I would like to, first of all, appreciate CTA, Mike Izolina, for the invitation to be part of this. I know for quite some time CTA has been supporting us, and we really appreciate that kind of support. I would also like to thank Madame Listra for the wonderful report. I think it really captured most of the issues that I would want to raise as a farmer representative. And you know, I realized when you are presenting that our CEO was part of the advisory panel, Stephen Muchili, and that's when I noticed that, you know, our issues were coming from an informed point of view. And to Christina, thank you very much for presenting the perspective of our African markets. You know, I really felt it when you presented the kind of markets that we have in Africa. The 70% of our, you know, of our farmers selling on informal markets, and you know, when you presented all those photos of East African markets, I really felt that I think this is the best platform to discuss such kind of issues. So my role here is to discuss and share experience of farmers and farmer organizations in food safety. And I've already been introduced. Briefly, I feel it is important that I briefly introduce Eastern Africa Farmers Federation to you. We are a regional farmer network of apex farmer organizations, cooperatives, commodity associations, women organizations, and lobby and advocacy organizations in the 10 Eastern African countries. Our members are from producers of crops, livestock, fisheries, and agroforestry. I've also, my next slide is on, it's a cuts of some media, some media cuts on food safety, and like you can see, it talks about, you know, the poisonous cassava meal that left the child dead, another in hospital. Talks about the fruits and veggies that could poison you. Kenya banning importation on South African cold processed meat, listeriosis scare, and then poison rice importers to face the law, and so on. So meaning food safety is really an important issue that we shouldn't even be discussing today, but should have been discussed yesterday. So what is the reality of our agriculture? From that slide, you can see that how does climate change affect our food safety? You can see we need to appreciate and understand that climate change is a reality, and together, you know, think through the measures on how we can mitigate on some of the climate change effects. But from that slide, you can see that climate change can increase food and waterborne disease risks in many ways, where many pathogens, such as those responsible, for example, for cholera, are sensitive to changing temperatures, rainfall, and extreme weather. And when you look at the diagram, it really summarizes some of the main mechanisms on how climate change affects all these other different areas that I've shown. For example, the changes in temperatures, rainfall, and sea levels, you know, it leads contamination of crops by human wastes to high, as a result of rainfall and high flooding. Then the increase, of course, the droughts also lead to food scarcity, and they can cause dietary shifts towards unsafe foods. And then the changes in pathogens growth also in survival and virulence can also increase water scarcity during droughts that can adversely affect the hygiene and sanitation. So we've been discussing food safety. What do we mean in all this? And to me, I think from the wiki definition, we are really looking at the handling, the storage, and the preparation of food to prevent infections and to make sure that our food keeps enough nutrients for us to have a healthy diet. And what does this mean? It means all these principles have to be applied along the value chain. We are talking of right from the farm up to the fork. And this approach should also apply to both the crops and livestock. So as farmers, why should we meet food safety standards? So from the farmer's perspective, I think number one, it's really our responsibility. It's our responsibility as producers of food to make sure that we have safe food for human consumption. And as a key player in the value chains, we have to provide accountability to the value chains to ensure there's, sustainable sourcing and incomes to farmers. This is reported in a IITA report of 2013, where a lot of our African food is lost in aflatoxin contamination. The report goes ahead to even bring out the monies that are lost in in aflatoxin contamination. And when you look at out of the 1.2 billion that is lost globally, $450 million is from Africa. And what does this mean? It means that actually half of what is lost globally in aflatoxin is from Africa. So we have a responsibility as farmers and as farmer leaders to make sure that we have safe food produced by our farmers. Then secondly, we also look at value. These days, everyone wants to pay for value. We need value for money, and we've seen this, for example, by the value of slow foods on Amazon, for example, $13.7 billion. We've seen this on fair trade, where they even go ahead, to pay for organic, to pay for premiums on organic production, and see. But less of this is seen on the local market, and it doesn't incentivize the farmers to produce organic foods. And then when it comes to the gaps, the good practices have to exist from the farm, on post-farm, on handling, and on traceability. In East Africa, post-harvest losses, for example, on maize always reach more than 25%. And this is according to the World Bank report 2011. So due to these diverse forms of contamination, we really feel as farmers and as farmer organizations there is an important role to play when it comes to food safety. Then the health consciousness of consumers. Most consumers nowadays are very conscious about their health and even willing to pay an extra penny for, for safe food for their consumption. And actually on this, you can refer to the first slide on the media cuts that I really presented. And we feel it is, we can offer safety food for consumption because we have technologies. Technology is here. We can check. We can be able, to check for safetiness of the food. For example, milk at the milk collection centers. We can be able to. We can promote blockchain, for example, to ease traceability of some of these, foods that we produce. So what are the opportunities that are available, and as farmer organizations, as farmers, what have we been able to do in terms of these opportunities? So one, we feel there is need for collaboration and partnerships in all this, and as Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, we've through our PIPAD program, we've partnered with we've been able to develop an extensive livestock strategy looking at agro-pastoral systems, enhancing them in climate variability, facilitating market access, and improving variation. And then one of our major sub-themes in this is looking at livestock feed resources and feeding packages. So under this collaboration and partnership, we also developed a 3-year program with the Max Rabner. This is a German institute on aflatoxin, which is starting in 2018. Apologies for the small data for, for German. My sincere apologies. And then we also feel there is need for a lot of capacity building and training. And we have our in-house mobile virtual platform called eGranary, and thanks to CTA for the support of this platform. And through that, we've been able to train over 250,000 farmers on post-harvest losses management of maize, and we've partnered with other organizations like Tinga to offer services that are mobile in nature to our farmers. And with this, our farmers are able to dry their maize properly, and they're able to also reduce on aflatoxin. In Tanzania, we've trained more than 1,000 farmers from a dairy cooperative and also from Tanga Dairy on pasture and silage management. And we did this to prevent or mitigate against aflatoxin contamination in animal feed. We are also promoting small livestock instead of really focusing on dairy on dairy cows as a source of milk and protein and so on. We are also promoting small livestock, for example, goats, as alternative sources of milk for nutrition. And we exported more than 40 dairy goats to Djibouti, and we've created a breeding in Djibouti, and right now we are also sourcing for more than 60 dairy goats to be exported to Djibouti. In the area of lobby and advocacy, we contributed to developing an aflatoxin policy brief that focused mainly on interventions to reduce aflatoxin, contamination in milk, in meat, eggs, sorghum, maize, and wheat. We also participated in the development of the East African Community Aflatoxin Policy and have been part of the subcommittee called the Regional Experts Working Group on Aflatoxin. And I would like to mention that being, of course, a regional organization, we have an MOU with the East African community, and we also have an observer status, so we engage with the East African Parliament, mostly in the area of lobby and advocacy. So through the PACA initiative, this is a partnership for control of aflatoxin in Africa. We are involved in creating awareness on aflatoxin to the agriculture community, we are part of the team that is creating a knowledge bank of work on the same in the continent and engaging policymakers in this debate. And in 2016, EAFF petitioned the East African Community Council of Ministers Chairman on food safety inspection concerns in internal borders. On all our internal borders, we lacked equipment to test aflatoxin and also livestock isolation areas. And the low capacity in numbers and of the technical people that are supposed to do this, and also when it comes to the skills. And currently, we have a one-stop border post that has been implemented in most of our internal borders, and very soon we are planning to make a visit to inspect if this has been improved. We also sit in the East African Committee on Standards, and we are part of the committee that really contribute to the setting of the standards. So what are the challenges in all this? I think when we look at the markets, our markets and the incentives that are involved, most domestic markets are not well organized. and they don't really offer incentive for farmers to invest and produce good quality produce for local markets. And that's why actually most of our farmers are always in informal markets, because they don't see value in producing what is highly paying if they can get market if they can get market informally, and there's no one who is even willing to pay for value products on the market. Then looking at the public health, I think it has quite been mentioned several times. At national level, we don't see a linkage between the public health and the agricultural ministries, and yet we know there is a correlation between, of course, a correlation between the two ministries. When you look at the majority of the diseases and the changes in the environment, there is need to be able to link these two sector ministries to ensure safe food for consumers. And there's also another area that has not really been researched on, for example, the alternative use of contaminated food products. We are talking of contaminated food, aflatoxin and other contaminations, but there is need to conduct some research and explore if there are any further uses that such kind of contaminated food can be put to, for example, making glue and alternative use of energy sources. And what are some of the challenges that have been identified? Of course, there is need for knowledge and technology uptake. The funding to promote food safety is insufficient. And of course, as farmers, we are not aware of food safety technologies that can improve the quality of food we produce. When it comes to regional and international agreements, they are either partially honored or not even honored at all. The ESC standards, quality, meteorology, and testing, for example, anti-dumping regulations and so on, creates avenues and risks of food safety. When these agreements are not really honored, it creates a lot of avenues for dumping, for risks to food safety, because most of the perpetrators think they tend to go away with it. There are no penalties that are tagged to this, so they tend to to ignore. Then our ad hoc government policies, for example, the recent unwarranted increase in VAT on pest control products in Kenya, all these create avenues for adulterated products on the market, and they increase risk for food safety. As as farmers, we tend to try to remain competitive and go for cheaper adulterated products. Then in terms of resources, both human and capital, there's need for investment in resources, both human and capital. And as Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, we are certain that we can achieve food safety through our digital platform that I mentioned, IGRAN, because with this we can bring on board all the different actors along the agricultural value chain. And as I conclude, of course, as the Federation of Farmers in Eastern Region, we believe that we still need to do more work in creating awareness to all the value chain actors, starting from the consumer to the farmer. And there is need to access affordable, poor farm screening kits, drying and storage technologies to manage any food safety related organisms at the farm. We also need to develop a food safety management protocol from farm to fork that can be adapted for local markets and train farmers on the same. And also we need to incentivize, we need to give incentives to the local production and markets by supporting more local value chain partnerships through innovative financing models. We also need to do more funding from, development partners and governments to be allocated, to the budgets on food safety programs. And we also need to engage policymakers with more evidence, research. So we need to do more research in the area of food safety. And lastly, we need to invest more in enforcement and monitoring mechanisms. And with that, I really appreciate you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for bringing the perspective of farmers' organizations in terms of their role and responsibilities in achieving food safety in Africa, especially through the various value chains that they are involved in. You have also highlighted the importance of partnership and capacity building and the role farmers organization can play through advocacy and creating awareness, to their members and the policymakers. Thank you.